in Radiant with your sun volume selected in entity info for your SSI, you want to choose one that you like. I've chosen for this tutorial MP_havoc. Once you have found one that you're happy with and you think looks nice, open it in Ape. Next, once you're in Ape, you want to grab your fucking SSI, copy it, and create a new GTT. Then paste your SSI into the new GTT. Obviously, you got to name it something differently. I typically prefix everything I have with VK and then the map name. So this is lighting tutorial and then SSI. Okay, so that's step 1. Now, back in Radiant, you want to choose your new SSI. Now, if it doesn't come up, you have to give it a while because sometimes it takes a while to update. Like now, it's not coming up, so we'll be back when that shows up. Right, now that it's here, we're going to click it and go straight back to Ape. Now you want to set this up so you can see the 3D view and Ape at the same time. So what I'm going to do is pull out the camera window, bring it to the half left of my monitor, and then bring up Ape without the half right. So now we can see what we're doing live, except we can't when we move the fucking thing. Alright, so pitch is your vertical and yours your horizontal. Now, what I like to do, because for some reason Truck actually never line up the sun in the skybox with the sun angle. Don't know why Truck do that, but I'm going to try and line that up and add a lens flare to begin with. So to do that, the easiest way possible, we're going to straight away add a lens flare. Now we can see here lens flare not set. If we go all the way to the right, click that. Let's go all the way down, we have one made already. This will show us exactly where the sun is in accordance with the skybox. This will greatly help us simply move it into position into the brightest spot of the skybox material. Oh, we have a lens flare offsets. Let's disable that. That's no good. So we've got to redo this bit since it was offsetted. Now this is in line. Right, now that we have everything lined up, we can start adjusting the other settings. Now stops is the brightness effectively. So, you know, just pick whatever you want. Like, make sure it does somewhat make sense with the skybox. Like if you have a very, very bright daytime skybox and you're setting it to 2, then, you know, it doesn't make much sense, does it? But there's also another stop setting of the material itself, which also has an effect, which we'll go over in a minute. But for this, I'm just going to stick with 11. Now, I'm going to go all the way down to the bottom here to bounce count. If you have a map that you want to be naturally lit, I recommend upping this. This affects how many times probes will bounce the light, which can make the natural light bounce around indoors a lot more. But if you're not, I don't recommend turning this up at all because it massively increases your compile times and it can look weird if you have it on fucking 10. So just be careful with the bounce count. Like basically with anything with lighting, you just play with it, test it until you get what you're fucking happy with. But for the sake of this tutorial, I'm going to up it by 1 so you know what it does. Alright, back up here we have some more options. Penumbra inches is like softening of shadows. So if we focus over here on this shadow as I up it to 3, you can see that it softens it. Now the higher you have this number, the more GPU it'll use. So it isn't recommended to go above 5. Next we have Specular Comp, which can boost or negate the specular of things. So I'm going to add a different texture to the floor here so we can get a better look. So if we focus on the floor here as we up the Specular Comp, you can see that it gets shinier. And this could be good for a map that's set when it's raining. So if you don't have a lot of materials that don't have the wetness look, you can just cheat and up the Specular Comp. So as you can see, this is just ridiculously shiny. It's basically fucking metal. But I'm just going to leave it on 0. I rarely ever change Specular Comp. But that's pretty much it for the SSI. You can have sun cookies, but I'm not going to go over that in this tutorial. That's a whole nother thing. If you want to know how to do like cloud shadows, I'll have a link in the description to someone who's actually made a great tutorial for it. Now that we're done with the first bit of our SSI, we want to duplicate it and make an override. Overrides are what you're going to see in-game, and the non-override, so you just your SSI, is what gets baked into the lights. So if we go back to Radiant after we save it, and reselect our fucking sun volume again, under runtime override, you want to simply add the override. So let's quickly add that. Now, to actually see this in action with an effect, I'm going to quickly build a basic little room with a probe. Now, this does need a probe to work, so the light does get bounced. Otherwise, it's not going to have an effect. If you don't know how to use probes yet, that's coming in part 4 of the lighting tutorial series. But for now, we can just skip that step, but this will still teach you what it does. Okay, as we can see, we have our little scene here on the left with our probed room and the lighting baked. So now we can play with our settings. Now, to start off, I'm going to up it to 15, which is dramatic, and we're going to build the lights so we can see the effect it has. As you can see, it didn't change what the SSI looked like to our player. However, you can see that now this room is much brighter because the bake lighting is at a higher stop count. Now for a lower, so below what the override is, you can see that our shadows will get darker. So here's some quick comparisons. Here's darker, normal, and brighter. And here's what I have on my map, 47 Berkeley Lane. So this is without it, and this is with an override. So it definitely helps when you're trying to accomplish specific looks. Alright, so I want to go with less harsh shadows, but not this bright. So since the override is 11, I'm only going to increase this to 12.5, which looks like this. Now that we've got the desired look, we're going to go back to the sun volume in Radiant and take a look at the entity info. So first things first, depending on the size of your level, your playable area, let's say it's this big. This isn't too big and there's fuck all geometry. So this will allow us to decrease our shadow split distance all the way down to the minimum, which is 100. But still don't want to do that because that's a waste of bake time. So I'm actually going to put it on 250. Now it's very important that you only have this as low as it needs to be, because the larger your sun volume, the more complex the geometry, more sun tiles it has to bake, which increases the sun size, and there is a limit of 128 meg. So for my map, Berkeley Lane, I actually have it on 750, which is reasonably as low as I can put it. Now to show you what this does, I've whipped in a couple trees so we have some complex geo for the sun to go through. Now unfortunately you can't really see the effect in Radiant, so I'm going to go in game and show you some comparisons of what it looks like in game. So starting out, here's the default value of 2000 shadow split distance, here's 250, back to 2000, and 250 again. As you can see, the detail of the shadows increases. So decreasing the shadow split distance is definitely beneficial to your map's lighting. Okay, now that we've set our shadow split distance, let's assume this is our playable area, this little box here. But we want to have Vista detail outside of the map. But we don't want to expand the sun volume bigger than the playable area, because that would be a waste of potential shadow split distance detail that we could have. So instead, what we're going to do is bring in something from the entity browser called a Vista Volume. Now these are basically sun volumes, just at way lower detail, and the shadows aren't dynamic. So with this, we can make this very big, like absolutely fucking massive, and this will cast shadows on everything outside of the sun volume, just at a way lower level of detail. So I'm going to throw in a couple mountains in the back here, so we can see what that looks like. Alright, I've placed my big fuck off mountains. But before we can bake lights, we're going to actually have to go back to the sun volume and adjust the shadow split distance, because this vista is very, very big. So I'm going to have to up this to 750 so that we don't kill our computer trying to process a million fucking sun tiles. So depending on the size of your vista, you may or may not have to adjust the split distance. But this is very, very big, so I'm going to have to up it to 750. 750 still looks good, it's good enough. From what I can tell, the Vista volume seems to be 4 times this value, so 750 would be 3000. This KVP here actually doesn't do anything in terms of the sun tiles, unfortunately. I've tried playing with it, doing all sorts of things, but it has no effect. So with that said and done, let's bake lighting and see what it looks like. And here we are, our Vista has shadows and the SSI sun hitting it. So it makes sense in terms of the color, the brightness and all that jazz. Okay, I'm going to quickly show you what it would look like if you didn't have a Vista volume at all. So as you can see, this is without a Vista volume, and it looks fucking terrible. So always use Vista volumes. Alright, that pretty much wraps it up for this tutorial. There is one more thing I do want to go over, however. If you're trying to use multiple light states, you will have to create more versions of these, because if you have the same override in two separate states, Reddit will assume it as a no bake state, and it will not let you build a light in the other state. So to fix that, just duplicate your override and your SSI in ape, and then use the new ones in your separate states. So for example, you could just name it lighting tutorial underscore SSI 1, lighting tutorial underscore override 1, and then 2, then 3, then 4. So that's it for this tutorial. Leave a like if you liked it, dislike if you didn't. Leave a comment which tutorial series I should do next. Subscribe so you don't miss any content. Thanks for watching, and peace.